There are lots of laws, codes, and regulations that we have to deal with. But for the purposes of this class, we're going to focus on just two. We're going to focus on regulatory law, and we're going to focus on common law. And we're going to look at those in the context of a contract and the work that we do every day. And then there was one last thing that you need to be aware of. It will be tested on, and it will come up later in certification exams and so on, and that is the Uniform Commercial Code. So let's start with regulatory law. This is sometimes called administrative law, and it is the rules and regulations that are set and enforced by government agencies. So that government agency can be the federal government, the state government, local government, but they're set by departments authorized by the legislation of those different agencies, and they act as laws. So departments can come up with these rules at any given time, say, and then they're enforced. Now the regulations that you're going to see most often, one, dealing with safety and health at the workplace is OSHA. So that falls under regulatory law. Then what about contractor licenses? Those also fall under regulatory law, as do the authorization to work or environmental issues, all the codes and permits, all within regulatory law. How are these laws enforced? Well, in a number of different ways. You're going to find surprise inspections on your work site. People will show up and will check the authorization to work of your workers. Check that you're paying them for the hours that they work, that you're following OSHA standards and regulations. So these surprise inspections ensure that you're actually following these regulatory laws. Or one of your workers might report that you're not following the law. Or a citizen might walk by and see something and they suspect that you're not following the law. Any of these things can result in you having someone come in and look at what you're doing, because they're going to investigate these conditions, and they're certainly going to investigate after an accident. And what can occur should you be found in violation of a regulatory law? Fine, certainly, but also prison. So you want to make sure that you are following all the codes and all the regulations set forth by all the different government agencies that are applicable to your project. Common law is the other law that we talked about. And common law is constantly evolving set of laws. This is probably what you're more used to seeing, especially say on TV, is that all the legal decisions and principles are based on tradition and custom or precedent. You often hear that word, precedent has been set. So when courts are hearing cases, they look to the past, at what happened in cases in the past as precedent for how to decide cases in the future. You know about the appeals process. I'm sure you've heard that word before, where a lower court makes a decision, then it moves up to a higher court, and so on. You can go all the way up to the Supreme Court. Well, a higher court can always overrule a lower court, but a lower court cannot overrule a higher court. In fact, lower courts are supposed to follow the precedent set by a higher court. Now, you just never know what you might get if you end up in a situation where you're having a common law dispute settled. Because juries can decide in just about any way imaginable. That's why most people avoid going to court. It's decided on precedent, and juries and other things just never know where that might go. Now let's just go over the Uniform Commercial Code real quick. And this came about because they were trying to harmonize all the state laws with regards to goods, right? The buying and selling of goods, because they know the states, are receiving orders and shipping across state lines and such. So the federal government wanted all the states to kind of harmonize all their laws associated with this, so they came up with a Uniform Commercial Code. And the states adopt that code, or some portion of it, or little modifications to it, so that they have that consistency and harmony with other states. But it does deal with primarily the selling and buying of goods, not services. So when you think of construction, most people think of services, and therefore the Uniform Commercial Code would not apply. But court cases have shown that if the goods and services being offered are more goods than services, then the Uniform Commercial Code does apply. Take, for instance, the installation of garage doors. If the selling of a garage door comes with the installation, it probably falls under the Uniform Commercial Code because the selling of the door is more significant than the installation of the door.